mysteriously disappears, and 911 tapes suddenly surface. And there's more. A reverend given a second chance at life finds his calling to free a convicted killer serving life behind bars. Investigative reporter Sarah Wallace joins us now with this extraordinary story. Sarah?
Well, and Chuck, it sounds like a movie, but this is real. At the center of it, a retired cop turned reverend turned private investigator, now on a life mission after thwarting death, and the bombshell evidence that raises serious questions about a prosecution.
Police operator 750, there's a shootout on my block.
These are 911 tapes from frantic callers on a block in Jamaica, Queens after gunfire erupted in March of 1989.
All right, how many shots you heard?
Some callers giving their names and detailed descriptions.
All right, I'm getting another description of a male, black, jeans.
But this man, Carlton Roman, who was charged, convicted, and sentenced to a 43-year-to-life prison term for murder and attempted murder, says he never knew those tapes existed until recently.
When you found out about the 911 tapes, what was your reaction?
I was flabbergasted. I didn't see that coming. I had zero idea that there was 911 tapes connected to my case.
The Queens DA's office, like all prosecutors, is required to turn over any evidence that could be favorable to a defendant.
Now we're finding out about it 20-something years later. That's not right.
The 55-year-old, currently housed at Greenhaven Prison in Stormville, New York, says the tapes contradict the entire theory of the prosecution, which relied solely on two witnesses who lied on the stand. Two men who said they were in this house when Roman and another alleged shooter, Hollis Lather, suddenly opened fire.
I've been saying the same thing for my entire time, since I was arrested in March 1989 till now. I had nothing to do with this.
There was no physical evidence linking the recent father, who'd never been arrested, to the crime scene.
I've never been in a jail cell my entire life until this.
He rejected a plea deal that would have allowed him to get out within 7 years.
I'm not pleading guilty. I didn't do this. I didn't kill. No.
Roman's co-defendant, tried separately, was freed after 2 hung juries. He told us he also never heard these 911 tapes.
Do you think they deliberately withheld that evidence?
Of course. They claim that the shooting took place inside.
Enter Reverend Robert Dickerson, a retired cop who traded in his badge for a Bible and a private investigator's license, and then found his calling trying to free Carlton Roman.
This man is wrongfully convicted. I feel for this case. I was a cop and I locked people up, but this is a travesty of justice.
Right away, Dickerson requested the Roman file from the DA's office and was stunned at the response. It was lost.
How do you lose a homicide file?
It's beyond me.
That means that all the police reports, everything in the investigation is gone?
Gone. Everything is gone.
But all was not lost. Dickerson and his partner, Dan Levine, also asked for the Layler file, and this disc with the 911 calls was in it.
She's on the street. The police are here now.
The calls appear to blow up the prosecution's timeline for the shooting and raise questions about exactly where it happened.
I think somebody shot outside my front gate.
Do you think they buried the tapes?
I think they buried my entire file.
There are absolutely no police reports in Layler's file about any interviews of the 911 callers.
I'm a retired New York City police officer.
Sadly, Dickerson has run into roadblocks finding those key witnesses so many years later.
In 1989, there was a...
But he's pushing on, taking one step at a time, literally. Last year, he had to take a break from the case after suffering a devastating health scare, spending months in the hospital with 2 brain tumors, unable to walk.
They thought I was going to die. I was on life support.
Miraculously, he was saved by an experimental antibiotic and is back on the beat.
When I finally started getting used to my legs, I begged the doctor to discharge me because I have work to do.
Roman's only child, a daughter, is now 29.
What would that mean to you to have him home?
It would mean everything. It would mean maybe making up for lost time, traveling together, catching up and doing things that a father and daughter would do.
It's one day at a time.
Do you believe you'll get out?
Yes, because I've always been holding on to the one thing that matters to me. I didn't do this.
The Queens District Attorney's Office admitted to us that Roman's file was lost, but they would not answer any other questions about how that happened, their position on those 911 tapes, or on a defense motion to overturn Roman's conviction. Both sides are due back in court February 23rd, and we will be there. Chuck, Natalie?
Okay. Thank you, Sarah.
All right, Sarah, thanks.
Well, it's time for the weather, and we're looking at another storm. Janice?
That's right, Chuck, and this will bring a variety of weather. We'll have rain, sleet, ice, and snow with this one, depending